All right, so the people that just walked in, welcome. You can scan the QR code when, yeah, ready? Just so we can at least like get an attendance of how many people are here. Welcome, guys. So I guess you can move it time for people to filter in, or like, they come from a boss or whatever. Uh, well, you guys get situated, get filtered in. If you guys don't mind, scan the QR code just so you guys can sign in. To everyone that just joined on the Zoom as well, if you guys don't mind, scan the QR code to sign in. It just helps us for the club, in general. Um, yeah. We're gonna get started around 6:05. Just gonna give time for people to like filter in. They're like late on a bus or whatever. Also, to note that for everyone that just walked in, that food's not ours. So please don't take food from there. I don't want to get yelled at. It's fine. Just don't do it again. Yeah, I know. The HDMI cable that loose? Damn. Might need to bring my own HDMI cable if this is how it's gonna be. That's crazy. That list, me just moving it once, blanked everything out. Okay, we're good now, I think. Yeah, cool. All right, to everyone that just showed up, we're gonna try to get started around 6:05. Scan the QR code to sign in. Be great. Yeah. Yeah. All I gotta do is just pull up the thing here and it'll record. Oh, David's in here. Unless someone just changed their name to David. Okay. Fun if it is David. All right, welcome everyone. Oh, it is actually David. Okay. I'm happy that you're here for this meeting. It should be a fun one. It's going to be very in depth. Um, yeah, so Bila just walked in. If you guys don't mind, please scan the QR code to sign in, just so for attendance, for our purposes, it helps us better everything. Um, yeah, I'm gonna get started around 6:05 just to let people, like I said, filter in if they're late on buses or people are joining from the Zoom a little late. And then I'm gonna get started. Also, David, I like how you kept your name as president, staying with that eternal president idea. Also, David, I don't know that I will be able to, but I'm gonna try to show up to B-sides this year, especially since you are doing a talk. That sound interesting. All right, since it's around 6:05, we'll get started, guys. All right, welcome to our third workshop this semester for RUSEC. Today we're going to be covering Linux command line, Linux in general, like what it's about, and some cybersecurity tools within Linux. Should be a fun presentation. If you guys haven't checked in, scan the QR code. But before I get started, I'm gonna, like I said, to gauge the conversation, like I did with the first workshop I hosted. I'm gonna gauge, like, figure out how I'm gonna pace this with a couple of questions. So, of everyone here, obviously you've kind of heard of Linux. If you were at the first workshop, you've installed a virtual machine before. So I'm not gonna ask that type of question. But do you guys under a show of hands, how many of you guys understand like specifically the difference or the major difference with how Linux is set up versus like Windows and Mac OS? Okay. And how many of you guys have ever worked specifically like in detail with like Linux or Linux command line in general? Yes. Yeah, yeah. As long as you've like interacted with Linux before in general, yeah. Okay. Um, how many of you guys have wrote scripts in like Linux? Anything like that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll try to pace it a little bit quickly, like some of the basic stuff, but for the more in detail stuff, I'll make sure to go in depth a little bit. Also, if anyone on the Zoom has any questions specifically, you guys can ask in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. Are you talking about for the ITI department or? Yeah, for CS, we don't really necessarily have anything about it. But computer architecture, anyone who's taking currently, they probably know it. I know it because I'm taking it. A lot of professors try to, because you have to use the iLab machines, which is a CS department thing. They use Ubuntu. You kind of have to learn how to program in Linux. So, if you're a CS major and you're like either a freshman or a sophomore, there's definitely a perfect introduction if you haven't taken Comp Arch to at least get involved, so you don't get like everything thrown at you right away. Um, but yeah. So for our agenda for today's meeting, we're going to go over what are directories and how do file systems work, specifically in correlation to Linux. And then I'm going to do a demonstration of finding word lists in Kala using directories, which are related to that. Then we're going to go into what is a command line, how do we enact the command line interface, why we use it, what are root and sudo commands, and what are man pages. All this might make almost zero sense. I promise it will as we go along. We're also going to go over the basics of utilizing the command line. So, like, what are some basic commands like cd, ls, rm, sudo, cat, grep, etc. You get the point. Then general commands, more specifically related to networking stuff. We're going to go over ping, traceroute, things like that. What flags are. That's related to a lot of how commands work and how they run, even application-specific stuff. Then we're going to specifically go over what applications are utilized in Linux. So things like man, database services like MariaDB specifically more. I don't know why I listed Mongo there. I've never worked with Mongo, but and then like Nano, which also is like Vim. And finally, the fun stuff. We're gonna go into a couple cybersecurity applications within Linux. I'm gonna show some tools. I can't really demo many of these because I don't have specific examples that I'm able to like utilize myself. But a couple of them, I'll try my best to show you guys how they work and what the purpose of them is. So yeah. Also, another note for people that just walked in: please do not eat the food that's over there. It's not our food. I don't know whose it is. We're not allowed to take it though, so please don't. Um, so yeah, what are directories and how do file systems work? So to start out, unlike Windows, which we're gonna go into how like Windows is different specifically. I'm gonna demo something real quick after this slide. But unlike Windows operating system, file systems are under a single root directory, which is just slash. Um, that's how Linux handles it. Everything's located under the same file system. Where Windows, it's separated based on like the specific drive. So if you have like a thumb drive, a hard drive, a I don't know, any drive that pretty much stores anything, it denotes them separately into different directories. In this case, separated by a letter, starting with the C drive, for example. That's what every computer starts with. Every hard drive that you have on your computer when you run your computer starts with the C drive. Other drives are mounted onto at different name paths under root in the case of Linux. In this case, you could see media flash drive. That's how you get access to a flash drive on Linux. Uh, and like I said, it allows you to mount wherever needed and allows you to put folders on used by apps on other drives and still be able to access them without relying on possibly missing files, which makes traversing through in some cases much easier if you don't want to look through like crazy pathing. An explanation of mounting really briefly is just like the process of attaching a storage drive or a partition to a directory. Uh, Again, I'll get into what that means in a second in the demo, but it allows you to basically access the contents managed by computer users. So really quickly, gonna demo this because I actually can personally demo it. Where did I just put my So if I open on Windows, this is Windows specific by the way. If I open the partition manager, which is a thing that is on just Windows in general, what you'll be able to see is that I have two partitions here. These are basic. Windows automatically creates them. And then I have the boot drive, which I renamed it to that. It's not normally called that. But as you can see, it's denoted by the letter C. That's my C drive. That's my main drive. That's how all the directories function. That's how you can see every single file on your computer is through this partition specifically. They even mentioned it there, boot, page file, crash dump, all that. It's how you access everything. To give an example, here's a flash drive with literally nothing on it. If I plug it in, you're going to see how it creates a different file naming scheme. It's not going to be underneath the C drive anymore. Hey, watch it just not. Come on. Should auto show up. Unless I'm going crazy. Why is this not showing up? It might have something to do with me being in the Zoom. But normally, throw another drive in a second. Yeah, I'll throw another thumb drive. Hold on. I use one I know has stuff on it, so it hopefully will show up. Should show up the way we want it to, though. Maybe reopen it. All right, this doesn't want to work with me because I'm doing presentation. It worked before I did this presentation and see that it worked. But normally afterwards, it would show up with basically an E drive. Um, Automatically, it would just show up in the partition slot. Uh, Now I'm going to quickly show how the files work on Windows specifically. In this case, as you can see, our boot drive. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now it wants to work. As you can see, it comes in with D since that's the next letter in the alphabet, of course. That's the USB drive that I just put in. And as you can see, it also has its own volume in and partition in disk management. And that's what makes Windows sometimes confusing because if I have a file in the C drive, like my user files, like how I access everything, right? It's on the C drive, but I also could have something similar, some user files on the D drive. So now you have to figure out where the file path is. Is it on the C drive, the D drive, all the way through the alphabet? And that gets very confusing. You got a question?
But like hypothetically, like if you like had like a lot of all like drives like to Z, but like another drive to just go to A.
Doesn't work.
So it's to
Yeah. It used to actually not work. But the thing is, how things were set up is like on a server, right? They'd combine like 26 drives onto one partition. There is a way to do that. And so they used to not really be the issue. But yeah, I can see where you're coming with that, especially nowadays, it kind of comes more common. I mean, there's cards that you can put in like 25 hard drives in, and then yeah, you'd have that situation. But yeah, I would go back to like AA, whatever. You can also name it A. I don't know why Windows, there's probably a reason, I just don't know it. Windows specifically makes it C first, even though it can be named A and B. I don't know why. Um, but yeah. So as simple as that, that's how drives work. And like I said, you get access to your files through here. That's for Windows. And that's why I was explaining the difference between Linux, because Linux is a little simpler. You just have the directory path and you can just follow it through there. Even with a flash drive, it'll just be called media flash drive. You don't have different password. So here's the specific file system hierarchy chart for Linux. And it follows this specific path for how their files are managed within Linux. This is all managed through the kernel, which ensures that resources are managed through the operating system. The kernel is basically how everything works in Linux. It's kind of like magic almost. I mean, someone programmed it, but yeah, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of Android devices are through Linux. I'm pretty sure Android itself actually is Linux. So that couldn't really demo it, but I know on my phone if I go to the kernel, it'll show like I'm pretty sure Linux. Um, but yeah, so to explain in a basic way of how this works, right? You have your root directory, which as we said was a slash, and then from there you can go into any specific directory you want, which these handle different types of media. So you have your slash media, which is removable media, like the flash drive we talked about. Maybe another hard drive that you just like have as a removable drive that would go in there. You have your home directory, which has the user's homes. So like if let's say I have three users attached to like my operating system, like me and I don't know, let's say for example, Ryan over here, another Ryan. Both we each have our own home directory. Um, then there's the root directory. I'm not going to go specifically into all these different types, but just know you can access every single one of these directories by just typing in slash whatever the name is. They all have different functions. They all serve different purposes. If you want to explore that, you can do that here. That's the scope of this because it's like there's a lot going into that, and we don't have the time to do that. But that's how it kind of works. To specifically show how that works as well, I'm gonna do a quick demo as well for through my virtual machine. You don't need to understand how all these commands work, but just know if I want to find if any of you guys were at the general meeting yesterday, do you remember how Ria mentioned something called rocku.txt and it was like a file with like almost a million different passwords that you could use to like check and do different things with? Well, Kali, nicely enough, when you install it, automatically has that file. They have rocku.txt, and all you gotta do is, pretty sure this is it. If you go into the users, you can see I just switched directories to user. Initially, I was at the root directory, and then I think it's under share. Uh, uh, yeah, it should be share. So yeah, user share. Uh, and then I think it's under. I want to say MISC, but gotta remember. Sorry, I haven't done this in forever. Yeah, it should be miscellaneous. And then there should be, if you ls, one for, nope, it is not here. Okay. Um, I can look it up and then that would make it easier. So if I just type in, should, I know I have the command somewhere. I'll just search through mine so it's easier to find. Should be near here. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember where the file is, the rocku.txt. No, that's what I just typed in. Um, There's also a way to search. I'm not going to go into the scope of that for this meeting. That's why I'm not like trying to like search for it specifically. Um, but hold on. Yeah, here it is. So it's user share, and then the name was I just didn't notice it. My bad. It should have been word lists, right? So you go into that, you show it. You can see in here we have rocku.txt. And then if I use something which I'm gonna again demo later in this, I'm just trying to show you guys how you can, you know, go through directories. As you can see, I'm typing all these commands, and each time it's moving me into a different directory each time from root. Um, then I can just do something like that, and then just open it, and boom, here's a list of passwords in that rocku.txt file that was mentioned yesterday. So stuff like that you can do. Uh, for what specifically? Yeah, just like what's the question specifically? So I know because like I mean there's a thousand things I did. This is Vim. We're gonna explain what Vim is later. It's a text editor though. Yep. Yep. Because Rock is a text file, so you can just use Vim to open it. Um, but yeah, back to the presentation. We'll go into this in a bit. Oh, I didn't know you can actually do that in this, but that's irrelevant. Okay. So what is a command line? A command line interface. To understand a CLI, we need to understand what a shell is first. The shell is a user program that lets the user interact specifically with the operating system of a computer and the services that are run on it. So they accept it as like readable commands that the user inputs, almost like if you're programming something, right? Similar idea. And this can be done through a terminal or even a graphical user interface. So like when you, for example, click on an icon like google.com, right, on your computer, right? When you open Google, it in the background you don't see it, but in the background it's technically opening a command line and it's running through all that so that the computer can open Google for you. Yeah. Similar idea. Yeah, they have their own shell, hence why it's called PowerShell. But PowerShell handles it slightly differently. But yes, it uses a shell through Windows that also opens everything. And we can access the shell through a command line interface, which allows us to type in commands that we want the computer to execute. Very essential in cybersecurity. If we want access to a computer, obviously they're not going to be like, "Hey, here we are, do whatever the hell you want." So we use the CLI to be able to run commands we want to run to be able to hopefully get access to a machine. Specifically in red teaming, of course, I'm referring to. But we use the CLI for even defensive things as well, because again, you need to see how people are trying to get in, and they're not going to show it, of course, either. So, why CLI? Similar to basically what I just said. Simply put, we utilize command lines because a lot of processes we might run around our computer, and these can't be done without giving commands to do it. They don't just automatically, exist for users to use. So, yeah. Um, yeah. So now going into what are root and sudo commands. In Linux, like in Windows, there are users with different privileges. As I mentioned in the first slideshow, privilege escalation is a type of attack where you change those privileges to try to get administrator access. Root, in the case, or real are super users, meaning they have full privileges in Linux, anyways, which is basically the same idea as Windows administrator users. Similar concept to that. Uh, Root has unrestricted access to the kernel, as we mentioned. What the kernel was very important. Allows everything to run on an operating system, and it can allow you to create, modify files, destroy things, change services, add users, whatever you want to do on that computer. Again, very dangerous in cybersecurity. Especially if you have like, let's say, for example, you're working in a hospital, right? You have a critical database with like people's medical records and information. If someone gets access, now they have the ability to be able to go in those files and see what's going on. So definitely not something you want. Why we listing here use root as necessary. If you're just using Linux daily, like a daily driver, you're running Linux, I wouldn't recommend logging in as a root user, just like I wouldn't recommend running it as an administrator user on Windows if you're daily driving it, because if someone does get access to your account, now they have access to everything. Um, and what sudo stands for is super user do. It is allows us to run commands that only super users have access to, and I'll get into that later when we go into a couple demos. Um, and yeah, as I said, it executes commands as root user. Um, and these are different like commands you can also run through sudo to do different tasks. Like you do sudo exclamation mark executes previous command that's been done. That you can use exclamation mark as well without just being like running sudo commands. That's just a regular like command. Um, this allows you to execute commands as a different user through sudo. And then the final one opens bash shell as a root user. I'm not going to explain what all that means. Again, that's for something for you guys to learn, but those are commands you guys can run. And now what are man pages? So this I will demo as well as I will demo something for root that will be a little after man pages, but man pages are actually pretty important. If there's something you've heard about or like you're trying to learn in Linux and you don't know what the either application or uh like command does, that's what man pages are for. They stand for Linux manual pages. And it's a collection of documentation for programs and commands and explains in like regular text what they mean. Uh, and yes, as said, brief description shows some flags you can use. Flags are something else we'll get into as well. If you don't know a command or forget how a command works, very useful. And other options include dash dash help or dash H for some applications. They'll let you see what specifically is run on it. And I'll demo that real quickly as well on man page. So we go back in here on the command line, and let's say that command I ran cd, right? You see that commonly here, me changing directories. Let's say I don't know what that means and I want to learn what it means. All I gotta do is type man and then just space cd. Okay, there is no man for cd. I thought there would be. Let's use Vim as an example then, I think. Yeah, there's one for Vim. So that text editor I use. As you can see, it's kind of hard to read because, it's like small text. I can't really zoom it in either, which sucks. But it explains what Vim is, brief description of what it is, some of the flags you can run as listed here, and some of the things you can do within Vim. So very useful tool if you're trying to learn what something is, you don't know what it is, you can use this to learn it. Um, Also, to note, we have 10 more minutes for the presentation through Zoom. I'm gonna rehost the same Zoom link if you guys want to join back. Uh, it's just, we only get 40 minutes for Zoom meetings, and I know this is gonna extend past that. Okay, back to the presentation. So basics of utilizing the command line. Common commands at these commands you saw me already are a pretty good amount. LS stands for list, and it lets you list the different folders and directories, or the folders that are in the current directory you're in, right? So as you saw, I ran that to C for rocku.txt. I was trying to find where it was, so I ran ls to see what other folders there were, so I knew what to go into next. CD stands for change directory, and it allows you to move from one directory to another. If you use the dot dot command, you go back one directory, or you can just type the directory name itself to go into that directory. As you saw, for example, I wanted to go back to the root directory, which was just done through the tilde key. I typed cd tilde, brought me back to root. Then there's cat, which stands for concatenate, like in programming. And it allows you to enter the contents of the file. So if you just type cat with the greater than sign and then the file name, it'll enter that file. So if you need to see the contents of it, like what's going on inside of it, especially if it's like a text file, you could just use cat. I don't think cat would work on an exe.
So stuff that you can like open up and see. So
Yeah, like see the contents of. So like if it's like a dot, like a programming file, like a .c file, right? Or like a Python file, things like that, you'd be able to use that and you'll be able to see what's inside the file specifically. A bin. I personally don't know. I've not worked with a bin file to know if it could. Um, you'd probably have to look that one up. I couldn't answer it for you. Yeah.
Kind of similar to them.
No, because Vim it allows you to edit text. It's text editing, right? Cat just shows you what's inside the file, and you can filter and look through things. You can't actually edit anything through Cat. Cat is less resource intensive, though. That's why it exists in Linux. Because a lot of things are trying to save resources. Very easy to just look through Cat and get what you needed to do. Final one. This one's a little bit more confusing, but another common one is grep, which stands for Global Regular Expression Print. Long weird name, promise it's simpler than it sounds. It allows you to filter specific phrases within a file. So like let's say in the file there's like words like in a text file that say hello world. If I type grep name of the file, hello world in the parentheses, it will, or sorry, in the quotation marks, it will search the file contents directly and look specifically for those keywords, and you can filter through it and look for it. I know I've personally used this sometimes during CTF calendars because like if I'm looking for a specific phrase or like something that like might help me lead to a flag specifically, it's a very common thing that's used to find those specific things. Um, and also a huge note to make sure that's clear so far at this point. Commands are files in Linux. Everything is stored as a file. Hard drive, flash drive, whatever. Even these commands are files on their own in Linux. You can search through directories and find these files, or sorry, these commands directly. Not that that necessarily is important, but to paint the picture of how Linux specifically works. It is slightly different with that, but in some ways simpler. And yeah, as we said, the greater than sign creates a file based on the function call. So in the case of if we run the greater than sign for grepping, it's gonna, or sorry, not for grepping, for concatenating, it's gonna allow us to actually like create a new file and see. That's how it's able to see what's inside of it. Piping is another important thing. If you were here for the PowerShell presentation last week, you kind of already got an introduction to it. But piping basically takes the input and output of a command, right? And allows you to go through multiple inputs to obtain an output. Think of it almost like filtering. Like you have like, okay, I have this input, but I also wanted to do this, but I also want to check this. And you can keep going down until you get the desired output, making it simpler. A good example is like last presentation. If we have we want to check the processes on a computer, right? There could be like 10,000 running at one time. Like it could be crazy. So you can use piping to filter things through to be able to just specifically look for the things you're trying to look for. Yep.
be like a search engine.
What do you mean by search engine? Like specifically, yeah, but I wouldn't say it's a search engine because it's not like a computer where it's using, or I mean, like the World Wide Web. It's not like a browser that like searches through a directory of things. It's just using what information you pass it to go through that specific file.
like that.
No, grep is set completely separate. Grep, just like I said, shows you the contents of a file, where piping lets you filter specifically uh whatever you're trying to search for. It's confusing, I know. I probably didn't give the best explanation either. You could probably most of the stuff you can Google, and you could probably get a even more like scholarly example of how to explain these things. But the reason I'm mentioning them is they are important. They are used significantly in cybersecurity and Linux alike. So they're important things that I felt were important to mention. Uh, well, you wanted to look up grep and also piping. Um, so now flags, the other big thing. What are a flag and what are their purpose? A flag essentially is like an option, right? If I run the command, let's say I run grep, right? There's some flags that are specifically used that allow you to do options while grepping, right? But a better example would be the one I gave here because it's simpler. ls, right? If we use the dash L, it also includes the file ownership, so it'll give you info on that. If you include dash A after it, it shows hidden files that might still be there but aren't shown. And dash R for recursive files. Um, Flags are important again as well because you might have one command and you want to be able to run through specific things or maybe find more information, and that lets you do that. A good example we're going to show later is something called PSAux that allows you to list the different processes running on Linux. And if you use filters, flags, you can figure out more information about a process. You might be able to find the name of it or what it's doing by using flags. So another very useful tool if you're just trying to get more information. All right, now I have an exercise for you guys, especially because I've been just throwing a lot of info at you. If you have a VM or like a regular Linux shell, you're already daily driving Linux, try installing that package. So apt install cmatrix and see what happens. Yeah.
So we get like, it's kind of like the word.
I mean, you probably should for the club. A lot of what we do is related to using a virtual machine. So I wouldn't definitely shy away from it. I would set up a virtual machine. Yeah.
Well,
I've never worked with guacamole. Is it like Debian based?
it's like it's like a virtual machine, but I'm not sure if it's Linux. It is Linux, but
Are you talking about WSL?
I think so.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
WSL.
So what happened when you guys ran that? Did it work? No? Okay. Uh Basically, I mean, I'll show it myself so you guys can see what it does for the people that don't have a Linux. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. Um, so really quickly before this presentation ends in less than a minute, if I run apt install cmatrix, right? This actually probably won't work because I already have installed. Yeah, okay. Also, I need to go back to root. But I'm pretty sure that's the one. Yeah, okay, because I already have it. So I guess it's harder for me to demo this now, but it shouldn't work. That's the whole point I'm trying to get across, right? Uh, Check that you have the command also installed. You can run the command dash C matrix, and it'll show up, or the command dash C matrix. You get it. What's in the quotes? It'll show you what that you have installed it, but what flags do you normally? How would you check the flags, right? If you're trying to learn what the flags are. I'll go over that in a second when I restart the Zoom. But there is okay, we're back. Hopefully people will join back. All right. So It's still on the slide. Yeah, I haven't, gone anywhere. So to the people that are running it, like I said, it shouldn't work. And to quickly explain the reason why, if you do not run sudo with this, it probably won't work because most application installs through Linux require you to have sudo privileges, just because you could do something really bad if you install an application that they don't want you to. So what you would have to do, right, is just do sudo apt install cmatrix. And again, it isn't going to work for me because I already did it to make this demo, but that should allow you guys to install it. And after you install it, when you run cmatrix to check uh which ones what flags there are and how to make it work, you can run, as we said, -h or dash help. And when you run that, you can see here what's listed is specifically different flags you can do. Now, in the case of this, to show you this cool little fun demo, we're going to run the -a. So let me do cmatrix -a, and you'll see it makes the fun, cool little matrix text, a little fun, cool thing. So yeah, to show the basics of how programs work and how you can run files with flags, there's something cool you can do with that. If you want to, you can do something like, I don't know, what do you mean what code? We just ran cmatrix with the -a flag, and that created that just to show up that text. Yeah.
Okay, so the it's unable to locate package.
Did you install it? Give me 1 second. Should just be. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's not doing this. Weird. Um, but yeah, we're gonna get along. If anyone else has any issues, you can come to me afterwards. I'll try to debug it and help you with it. But this is just fun, cool little command that I just wanted to show for that. And yeah. So if you're wondering also how to stop a process, so like there, as you saw, I couldn't really do anything. You hit Control C. So Control C lets you kill a process that's running. So if I run it again, Control C, ends it. Can you even do that just here? Like if you see I press Control C a couple times, opens more lines I'm able to just write on. And yeah, continuing along. Here's some networking commands. This is where I'm gonna start pretty much demoing everything I do. It's kind of more involved and makes a little bit more sense for me to show off. Uh, ping. It allows you to see if you can reach a specific IP address. Note ping and tracer, the two here, are not Linux specific. Works on any operating system. You can go onto Windows right now and do ping, and it will work. But it allows you to basically, it's useful because you can see if you're connected to the internet or if you're reaching a specific computer because you need to. In the case of Hack the Box, you'll use ping commonly to make sure you're actually reaching where you need to. And I've used it commonly trying to connect to a VPN to make sure I'm actually getting on the VPN. And I'll demo that real quick with like a common IP address. If you guys don't know, google.com, their IP address is 8.8.8.8. Very simple. So if I just ping 8.8.8.8, you should see I am getting information here from that. I'm getting bytes back, meaning A, I'm connected to the internet, and B, I can get to google.com. And it's going to keep doing this until I end it, but that's a basic explanation of what ping does. And traceroute goes a little more in depth and allows you to see the IP routes from your machine to the final destination. In the case of the example of google.com, google.com. It'll show you like the different servers you go to through their IP addresses before it finally gets back to your machine. And I'll quickly demo that as well. Same idea. Actually, Adam, do you know if Traceroute does work on Linux? Because I don't know that I've never ran it on Linux because it's not showing up as a command for me. All right, well, I'll just yeah. Is it trace route? Okay. Yeah, it is trace route. Okay, cool. So sorry, it's typed a little differently in Windows. I'm used to the Windows way of showing it. Irrelevant to all this stuff. If I do that, same idea. It's gonna quickly go. It's not quickly. It actually takes forever, but it's gonna slowly go through all the routes it takes before I get to Google Docs. Yeah, come on, that makes sense. They don't want me adding anything. But it'll tell you how to get to, eventually your connection to google.com. I don't know how long this is going to take. I might kill it before it finishes, but you get the point. Okay, finished. So yeah, took did it 30 times and then hopped to google.com in 30 hops. I'm not going to go specifically, like I said, too much in that command. I haven't personally used it in cybersecurity yet, but nice command to know. It can be important. Um, and then PSOX. This one is going to be important. It's like what was shown in the PowerShell demo. It allows you to specifically see all the processes running on your computer. Again, I can show it this way. If I type PSOX and then okay, it worked that way. Weird. Okay, so I do PS aux and then do -H. It can show me what specifically you can run for different PS aux things. And obviously, there's more additional help things. There's a lot of flags you can run, though, and a lot of piping you can do with that to allow you to filter this. Because this is every single process that I'm just showing here in this list that is running on my operating system on the virtual machine. So it allows you to see specifically everything that's going on. You can look up these PIDs. They're called PIDs. They basically denote an application. You can, like I said, use flags to say what the application name is, but even if you don't, you can Google what's PID 10, right? And it'll try to explain it more. Or you could try to look up the command. I'd say that's a little harder though, because you're not really going to know what each command means. Like I personally don't know what ZSH is in the user bin. So be easier to just filter that and find the names. Okay, going back to the slides. Again, it's going to be a lot of back and forth now because it's more me just showing commands more than actually like, explaining things. But as we mentioned before, yeah. Yeah, I'll post the slides. Some of these things I didn't really go into the detail of how to run the commands for just because I was kind of trying to do this quickly and it's a lot of like stuff in the like detail. But a lot of this stuff, like I said, once you know the common basic stuff, it's easy to run. Vim Nano, they're two different text editors. I already showed Vim really quickly. I can show it again. If you want to Vim any file, you can Vim, type Vim literally, and then the name of it. So again, if you want to do rocku.txt, it'll open it. And then Vim lets you edit it. So if you want to script things, write scripts, run scripts, right? Vim is a very useful tool if you want to do that because it lets you type anything. And if you're, like I said, in computer architecture, as a CS major, you're going to use Vim all the time. It's going to be your best friend because sadly, in C and assembly, you learn a lot about Vim. So yeah, that's I'm not going to go in detail, but it's something you can do to learn scripts. Like I said, you're going to run probably like really basic scripts in competition. Sometimes they might make you to do it, especially like something like CCDC. But again, they're very basic. They're nothing too crazy. And Nano, like I said, same thing. It's text editor, but a lot more basic, less commands you can do, less in depth. Some Linux systems though don't have Vim, so you have no choice but to use Nano. I had to use an operating system like that once at a practice for a competition. It's not fun, but I made it work. DB services. I went over this quickly just because, like I said, I don't have too much experience with it, but I know it's used in competitions. Not that you'll use the databases specifically, but you might have to interact with them or like defend them. commonly I've worked with MariaDB. I have interacted with other database services, but they all use MySQL, which is a programming language, to create a database. Um, there's something called a SQL injection, which someone might explain later in either a workshop or the general meeting. The very common attack vector, very commonly used to attack computers. So that's why we covered database services because people use SQL injections all the time to get information. So very useful thing to just know that database services are out there. It's something you need to know how to defend. Um, Now we're gonna get to the fun stuff. Specific cybersecurity applications within Linux and what some of them do, some of the fun, cool stuff you can do. We're gonna start with a major disclaimer. This is pretty much copied from the first week, but now I genuinely mean this. What I'm about to show you will, if you run this on Rutgers Network, will get you in trouble. You will probably get an email, and you could also get like expelled from Rutgers if you, they think you're doing anything harmful. Uh, the way I'm going to run this, I'm running this on a VPN. I'm running this through like the Hack the Box through a VPN, so that I don't get in trouble. Just know, be careful of what you do in cybersecurity. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I'll explain why this is like majorly bad and why Rutgers doesn't want you doing it in a minute. But yeah, disclaimer out of the way. Please don't do this without like, you know, getting permission or doing whatever. So the first thing we're gonna go over is Nmap. You're gonna get more detail on this when we do the hack the box like walkthrough because it's going to go into more detail. I'm just kind of quickly explaining it. But Nmap stands for Network Mapper and allows you to enumerate. Again, they'll go into later. And it allows you to see what ports are open within a network. That basically lets you be able to see what attack vectors you might have on the network. That's the reason most networks don't want you running it on their network because, yeah, you can kind of see how to attack their computers, and no one wants that. That's not fun. Rutgers specifically, the thing is with Nmap, it's very loud, and what that means is people can know that you're doing it. When you run Nmap on their side, they get a IP address or your IP address, and it'll be like, "Hey, this person's running Nmap. This person's doing that." So you run it, they're gonna know you ran it. It's not like it's hidden, and yeah, like I said, you'll get in trouble. Um, but in the case of this demo, like I said, I'm a hack the box right now. I have a different VPN than Rutgers, so it's not an issue. Um, and what you can do is literally just run Nmap. Here's a couple flags here. Again, I'm not going to go in detail. You can learn it by doing dash help on it. And this is the IP address of, as long as it's still open, let me double check that. Um, I might have to reopen it. No, it says it's still active, so let's hope that's true. Yeah, so this is the IP address of this hack the box machine. Um, and what I can do is, or did it? Wait, did it change? Yes, it did change. Okay, good thing I didn't run that then. I probably wouldn't have done anything, but you run that, and now it's going to run the application known as Nmap, which is auto on Kali, so you don't have to worry about it. It's going to take a little while because it has to look through the whole network and check what's open and what's closed so it can figure everything out. My computer actually did pretty fast. And as you can see, it lists a whole bunch of information. Here's the report for it. And as you can see, this port 21 and TCP is open using the FTP service. Again, we're not going to go into what all that means, all the port numbers, what all it means. But now I know if I want to hack the box, since this is open, FTP, I know I can attack that because I know there's something I can do on FTP that is allowing me to have communications within the computer, and I can probably attack it and get somewhere. Like I said, it's why most networks don't want you doing it, and they will know that you do it. um, Next one, same kind of disclaimer, just a little different. Do this with permission of people. It's not that dangerous to do necessarily. Sherlock's a basic tool that allows you to scan email addresses and see what like websites they're signed up to. Simple as that. And I can quickly demo that as well. I'll just use my I'll use like I don't know, I'll use one of my personal emails. I don't really care. So I use that one, right? It's one of my email addresses. And then it's going to check for any of these sites. Some of them it isn't accurate, I'll be honest. Like I've never heard of anyworld.com. I've never signed up with an account, but someone must have used my email on it. I don't know how. But some of these it makes sense. I mean, Spotify, I'm pretty sure it's through that email. Trello, I know I have a Trello account through it. etc. And that's what the plus sign means. It's basically saying that there's an account active on that service. So pretty fun if you just want to like you got a friend to like let you see what they're doing. It's like, ooh, I want to figure out what you're using. You can do stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those honestly I don't have. Someone must use my email address. I don't know. I don't really care. Yes, there is. I'm not gonna demo it here, but there is one for that. You're right. And it's still running through it, but I'm just gonna cancel it now. I don't have oh there we go. Yeah, it came up with errors. That's fine. Um Next one, I can't necessarily demo. Hashcat is another really useful and really important tool that's used pretty commonly. And Hashcat lets you run through different passwords, like the rocku.txt wordless file we talked about. And it allows you to obtain a password based on a hash you're given. I've used this commonly in CTS, commonly. Because what you'll do is they'll give you like the hash for a password. It's like, okay, figure out the password. Well, how am I supposed to take a random like 256-bit integer and expect to know what that output is? That's crazy. No one's going to know that. Especially because it's just using math to figure it all out. Yeah, so I've used it in competitions. I actually know I have a flag for it that I've used on this one. Yeah, so this was the flag I used for I had a BitLocker once for a competition, right? Which was an encrypted hard drive. It had a hash password. I couldn't figure it out. So I used these flags, the hash txt file, and then I used Hashcat with the RockView.txt file, comparing these two to get the hash and find the password. What Hashcat will do is if it runs correctly, if you run it with the right flags and commands, it'll just tell you the password. Flat. When it's done running, it'll just be like, okay, there's the password. Um, the only thing that to note and be careful with Hashcat is it does use a lot of computer resources because again, it's comparing a lot of information. It's comparing a file with like millions of passwords to that hash and running commands on every single one to see if it works. Uses a lot of computer resources to do that. Yeah.
What's wrong? Is it just the most normal password?
It's the probably most in-depth password like text file that is out there. That's why Kali uses it. But yes, it's literally just a list as you saw when I opened in Vim initially of very common passwords. So it'll have stuff like 000, 1234, password, like, and it just lists the most common ones. But like I say, it's like a million of them. So chances are if you use kind of like any words, it's probably on RockU and probably find your password. So just be careful with it. I mean, because I know the password for this one specifically, I remember it was something random like Rosemary's Peaches or something random, like two words, random words, but it still found them. And that's not that like, that's pretty specific. So something to note about password protection. Yeah. Another thing, like I said, with the disclaimer, don't run it if you don't have permission. Like, I'm not gonna go and run it on someone's computer and on their passwords. That's not nice. That's not good. Let's not do that. And that's it for the specific cybersecurity commands. Some homework for all of you guys. I recommend you guys run sudo apt update and then sudo apt upgrade on your virtual machines. What that will do is, I'll demo it real quick. If you type sudo apt update, it will show you specifically how many. Okay, I gotta set my password. Right. You also have to do that all the time if you're running sudo commands because it wants to make sure you're actually like having sudo privileges, which is fine. It's gonna give you a list of all the packages that need updating. I kind of don't follow this. It's I'm kind of bad with this. I don't update it all the time. Uh, but to make sure that like all your like applications are running properly, I would continually update it because it might have an out of date like like process that is running and then it won't really work the way you want it. Like if I ran Hashcat right now, it probably wouldn't work. Because as you can see here, I don't know where it is. Here it is. 1,582 packages can be upgraded. So like I kind of need to update really badly. But um then if you run sudo apt upgrade, right? That upgrades all of them. I'm not gonna run it right now because that's gonna take like 30 minutes, and that's why I say something you guys can do on your virtual machines at home. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you all for coming. If you have any specific questions, you guys can stay after and ask me. I know it's a lot. We'll, tone it back and we'll be going more into detail on these things in the future to try to get more information. But thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
the first workshop we did, I downloaded Cali and
Yeah.
like when I did, cause we did like a test one.
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
did
I just
pop
had it
up
test,
the
yeah.
gra- But now, every time I try to run it, it's just a full, like preview.
Even if you like run. I see your laptop. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna put it up here.
Cause I had it before where like you would put in the username or password